The notion that the science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is a misconception that has been circulating among certain groups. This idea is often perpetuated by individuals who claim that climate change is a hoax, and that the scientific community is attempting to deceive the public, particularly Christians, into accepting a false narrative. However, a closer examination of the science and the facts reveals that this claim is unfounded and misleading. Firstly, the scientific consensus on climate change is clear. Human activities, particularly the emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, are significantly contributing to the warming of the planet. This is not a theory, but a fact that has been extensively documented and studied by scientists across the globe. The evidence is overwhelming, and it includes rising global temperatures, melting of polar ice caps, and an increase in extreme weather events. Despite the clear scientific consensus, some individuals claim that climate change is a myth, and that Christians are being manipulated into accepting it. They argue that climate change is a natural phenomenon that has been occurring for centuries, and that human activities have little to no impact on the environment. However, this argument is based on a flawed understanding of the science. While it is true that climate change has occurred naturally in the past, the current rate of change is unprecedented and is largely driven by human activities. It is also important to note that the scientific community is not motivated by a desire to manipulate Christians or anyone else. Scientists are driven by a desire to understand the natural world and to uncover the truth about the environment. The scientific method is a rigorous and objective process that involves the collection of data, the formulation of hypotheses, and the testing of these hypotheses through experimentation and observation. Furthermore, the idea that Christians are being manipulated into accepting climate change is also unfounded. Many Christians are deeply concerned about the environment and see it as a moral issue. They believe that humans have a responsibility to care for the earth and to protect it for future generations. In fact, many Christian denominations have issued statements and taken actions to address climate change, recognizing it as a critical issue that requires a response. It is also worth noting that the claim that climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is often perpetuated by individuals who have a vested interest in denying the reality of climate change. For example, some politicians and business leaders have argued that addressing climate change would be too expensive or would harm the economy. However, this argument is based on a short-sighted view of the issue. In reality, addressing climate change would require significant investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and other sustainable technologies. These investments would not only help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but would also create new jobs and stimulate economic growth. In conclusion, the science on climate change is clear, and it is not a lie to manipulate Christians. The overwhelming evidence from the scientific community demonstrates that human activities are significantly contributing to the warming of the planet, and that urgent action is needed to address this issue. Rather than being a myth or a hoax, climate change is a critical issue that requires a response from individuals, communities, and governments around the world. Christians, like people of all faiths, have a moral obligation to care for the earth and to protect it for future generations. By working together, we can address the challenge of climate change and create a more sustainable future for all.